Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the major manufacturing part number HIT-42FB8 is what this is. This is a template that is used for helping you get a flush bolt installed onto a wood door. And that flush bolt in particular is the Glynn Johnson FB61 or the Ives FB41. I don't know if there are any flush bolts that are still branded under Glynn Johnson. There was a time when Ives and Glynn Johnson were not sister companies, that's for sure. And there was a time that Ives did not make automatic flush. Well, there was definitely a time when Ives didn't make automatic flush bolts. I just don't know if that time was within the span of my 3-decade career. They certainly always had the 458 flush bolt. I just don't recall 30 years ago if they had automatics or not. I'm sure that they must have. This is a work of art from Major. All of their templates really are. It's really hard for me to come up with ways to improve their systems. The fellows over there that are engineering this stuff, they are not only people with actual field experience and years of it, but they're engineers, they're metal workers, they're tool and die guys, they know how to work lathes and CNC equipment. If I didn't say it, they're tool nerds is what they are as well. The one fellow over at Major said, yeah, the last thing you want to, if you're a tool nerd and you are out in the field trying to install hardware, you're going to develop ways to solve these problems, and if you have a mechanical background. In concept, in theory, this item is simple in the sense that it's pieces of aluminum that have been mechanically attached, is just what this is. But my goodness, if you need to get a job done quickly, this is going to get you really, really close to it. So a visual tour, dimensional tour of the item right now. So here's your visual tour. It's a nice type of gold anodized aluminum, weighs 5.15 pound. At least it does with its instructions and an Allen wrench and some screws. This would be the top of the door. This is the face of the door. This or the style. This is the top rail or bottom rail. This plate comes off for when you are doing the faceplate prep only. What are you going to use it for, basically, is the question. Well, you need to install those flush bolts, and doing flush bolt work, corner flush bolts like these are corner style flush bolts. They go in the top or bottom corner of the door. They're easy compared to extension flush bolts. If you're doing extension flush bolts in a wood door, I encourage you to not try to do that in the field unless you've done it, or unless you've got the tools, or unless you're brave enough. Don't try it. It takes experience and ruining some doors to learn how to do it right. Lever extension flush bolts are really meant for metal doors, not for wood doors. The problem with corner style wood door flush bolts is if you have a 9-foot door, you're certainly not reaching up to the top of the door to flip the lever to disengage the bolt or re-engage it. You're certainly going to be thinking about automatic flush bolts at that point, is what you're going to want to probably consider on that. So what you're going to use it for, and how you go about using it. We've talked about what you're going to use it for. You need to get flush bolts installed. Let's switch to actually talking about how to use it. We're going to, at this point, switch to the screen view because you'll be able to go through the installation instructions with me. But before we do that, let's do a physical tour of the piece parts that are actually on this item. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Let's do an anatomy of these parts before we get any further. So you've got the template, and when it comes out of the box, it has everything attached to it. You don't use it just the way it comes out of the box, most likely. You're definitely going to want to read the instructions, but this faceplate here, this comes off. You're only going to use this when you are mortising the body of the flush bolt, not the plate, not the decorative finished plate, but just the deep mortise body itself. You've got the body and you've got the plate. This, when it's installed, does the body. You also have these shims that are here. You've got a 1/4 inch shim here, and then you've got an 1/8 of an inch shim here, and you've got them here as well. These are meant to allow you to center this appropriately when you are on a door that is 2 1/4, 2-inch, or 1 3/4 thick. The way it comes out of the box is probably not the way you need to use it because it's set for 2 1/4. Actually, no, it's not set for 2 1/4. It's set for, technically it'd be set for something like 2 1/2. You don't use both of these shims. We'll look at the instructions and we'll talk about what you do, but just be mindful. You've got the 1/8 inch shim here, you've got the 1/4 inch shim here, and you've got it back here as well. You know, the initial question you might have is, well, how do I get this attached to the door? Well, you're going to have to clamp it to the door. And if I were to make a recommendation, I might have looked to make this portion longer at the top and bottom and then used a couple of biparting elbow clamps. I am failing in being able to give you an actual proper term for it, but just a pressure clamp that you could clip over on each side, top and bottom, that might work. But you're going to definitely need to clamp this to the door so that it doesn't move. But the factory, what these screws are, they include those screws with the idea that you're going to simply hold that into the door with 2 screws. I've never tried it with just 2 drywall screws, and I don't know that I would be really interested in trying. For 2 reasons. You're using a plunge router. You're removing a lot of material. You could bump into that template as you're running the router a bit more forcefully than what a drywall screw would tolerate. Plus, you're going to have a couple of holes in your door. Well, I suppose the hole in the top and bottom of the door, no one's going to see it. Not necessarily a big deal. But I don't know if I'd want to have a hole in the edge of the door that I'm going to just then have to figure out how to fill. Okay, so I don't know that that would be my first choice. But let's talk about switching to the screen view. Let's talk about exactly how you're going to use this tool. It'd be easier just to demonstrate by going through the installation instructions because it's so full of images, actually. Let's do that now. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. All right, let's talk about this template, where we're going to use it. First of all, let's look at the extended description. You've got a factory image of it here, the HIT 42FB8 router template for Glynn Johnson and Ives automatic flush bolt. It's a router template for those bolts. This template attaches with screws on the top, on the door top and front. A C-clamp can also be used instead of a screw on the front. This tool will work on 1 3/4, 2-inch, or 2 1/4 inch thick doors. It does require a plunge router with a 5/8 OD template guide and 1/2 inch diameter bit. Take that as not an option. Take that as mandatory. If you don't have these 2 items, this is not going to work for you. You can do the prep, but it ain't going to fit. The hardware will not fit in the prep. We'll talk about why. Product brochure and installation instructions. Let's look at the images that I have of this item first. There's the label, the template itself, side view, the opposite side, the top of the unit, the underside of the unit, installation instructions that are included, as well as the screws and the Allen wrench. They give you these 10 screws or so, and that's what causes me concern or causes me to pause. You're only going to use 2 at a time. They're obviously thinking breakage with drywall screws, bugle head, coarse thread drywall screws. I might not. Yeah, those might be considered fine thread. Anyway, your mileage may vary. You can determine whether or not holding it in with screws, one here and one here, is what you really want to do. Okay, let's look at the product brochure. It's basically an overview, but it does give us some additional information that is going to be handy to look at initially. As soon as the computer decides to help us load. All right, we have the 42FB8. Let's talk about the 42FB8. That's what it's going to look like on the door. On a corner sample of the door, I should say. So let's look at the description of what Major says. Here's an accurate and fast way to install these flush bolts. The router guide uses a plunge type router and will turn a long job into one that's both quick and easy. And I would even add, it turns a job into a potentially hackmaster job with a chisel and a butterfly bit and a big mess to something that's going to look quite professional, factory done, in fact, when you're completed. This is a two-part guide. The main guide is to cut the faceplate on the door, top or bottom, and front. Attaching the second template will guide the router to cut the body mortise. Just square the corners with a chisel and the job is done. This template attaches with screws on the door top and front. The C-clamp can also be used. This tool is going to work on 1 3/4 to 2 1/4 inch thick doors, and again requires that 5/8 OD template guide and the 1/2 inch diameter bit. I had a customer install some mortise and then try to install some sauce hinges, and he said, boy, the sauce hinges don't work the right size. And he ordered from me only the template and not the guide or the router bit. He ordered the template and the hinges, actually, but not the tools. And I says, well, that's very unusual. I've used that sauce template in the past. Let's go through it. And, hey, what diameter bit do you have? Well, it says 1/2 inch or whatever it is. It might be 3/8 with that template. I don't recall. And he had the right size, and I had him get a caliper, and he measured it and gave me the right size. And then when we went to confirm the template OD, indeed, he was using one that was not the right size. He was using one that was actually too large, which was netting him a smaller fit than what it would tolerate. So he did have to get the right template guide, simply remortise, a quick and easy job, and they would have, they certainly fit in just like they ought to have. Okay. Yeah. All right, let's look at the installation instructions, which are here as well. Let's do that now. Installation instructions. They're in the packaging. They're going to come with it. It's nice being able to look at it here online because it's a lot more portable than some paper. One thing that's very nice about installation instructions from Major is they use really big font and really big photos, and that's nice. So router basics, I'll let you read that. They're going to tell you to eye and ear protection, obviously. I always wear gloves, or at least something thin, but I always wear lung protection as well. The eye and the ear, that's obvious. But what's not obvious is slapping on a dust mask, and a good one, too. Don't underestimate the value of that. I believe the years I spent in a wood shop plagues me years later, because while my lung capacity is excellent because I swim, I find that I'm really intolerant to sawdust in the ear, and I think it's because of those years prepping a lot of stuff with eye protection, always ear protection, maybe not always eye protection because I wore glasses then, but never a dust mask. So that's what Major says. Make sure a router template guide is installed in the base of your router. This stuff I'll let you read. Not much for us to go through there. This is what you need to get started setting up your router. Whether it be the FB6 or the FB8, which is what we're talking about, you've got to have a router base installed. That's this black item. No big deal. You must have a 5/8 guide. The diameter of this guide, if you put a caliper on it, is 5/8. It has to be 5/8. That dimension, along with the diameter of the bit that's going through there, this would be a plunge router bit, 2 flute. This is a 2 flute carbide 1/2 inch, 2 9/16 or 3 1/2 inch, whatever. Oh, it's right here. Sorry, 4 inch long router bit. You're going to need a plunge router bit. You're going to need a longer bit, and we'll discuss why. Choose a router bit long enough to reach the bottom of the flush bolt mortise. That's why. The router must also have enough throw to reach, meaning you've got to have a plunge router, a router that you can change the depth by pulling a lever and pushing the unit up and down in relationship to its base. A standard router is not the way to go with this. So you can use this on those 3 different door thickness ranges we talked about. We'll discuss how. This is what it looks like. A screw here, a screw here. With this is what you're going to use to do the faceplate. I wouldn't do it in this order. I would remove the faceplate. I would do the body prep first. I like to work from deepest to shallowest, so in case I nick the edge of the door, I've not done the faceplate prep already. I can sometimes go over that. How you end up nicking the door is when you pull the tool out of the template before it's completely stopped turning. That's a fool's way to proceed because this template is extremely expensive. Once you nick the outside of this, you've not only potentially damaged your router bit, but you've permanently damaged a very expensive tool. Always just make it a rule that you never remove the tool while it's still turning. So template for mortise cavity, remove it to route the faceplate. So what I would end up doing is I would end up, and I understand why they do it in this fashion, because you're not going to be able to do the body at the top with the faceplate installed, so that's why they do it first. I would very likely prep the body on the stile first, pull that off, then I would do the body up here is what I would do, and then I would do the faceplate. So it's going to be less convenient making those 3 steps. If you do it this way, you're still going to need, well, actually I don't think you're going to need to remove this. It would depend on how far deep you're plunging here. You might not need to remove that at all. I've not actually used this tool, but that would just be a matter of doing it and then seeing how many, whether or not you've got to remove that once or twice. But I would do the body first. I would prep this, get the entire body prep done, then put this back on and and then remove it and do the faceplate. Template can be attached to the door with the screws. Now, so we talked about the 1/8 inch shim and the 1/4 inch shim. When there are no shims, you're going to do a 2 1/4 inch thick door. So right out of the box, you're not going to do anything because both of those shims are stacked on each other. So if you're going to do an 1 3/4 thick door, 1/4 inch thick mounted on the inside will center the template on an 1 3/4 thick door. So you're going to use the 1/4 inch shim. You're obviously going to have to remove the 1/8 of an inch shim. Probably remove it, put it in your toolbox, and and you'll have it there when you end up, if ever, doing a 2 inch thick door. If you're going to do something, it's this, and then it's this, and maybe 2 inch thick, but you won't use it as it comes right out of the box. They have a piece of lumber here, maybe some 8/4 that's been planed down. The flush bolt installation, set the door must be removed from the jamb. It has to be removed from the jamb for a bottom bolt. The top, you could actually probably leave it hanging. I don't know that you'd really want to do your prep like that, though, with the door in the opening, hanging in the opening. So they're obviously showing you how to attach the template, secure the template to the door. You accomplish this by using a drywall screw. The top hole left in the door will not be seen. The hole in the front of the door can be patched with a dab of putty. That may or may not be agreeable to you or your client or the owner. Or a finish screw can be installed, and it will look like part of the installation. That's a no. See next picture for alternating method. Here's a Jorgensen clamp. Well, actually, I wouldn't call that a Jorgensen clamp. Jorgensen may have clamps like this, but just a C clamp like this, but a modern version that telescopes down that. I wouldn't use an old school C clamp. They've got the plate removed, the body shim template removed, so they're obviously doing the body here. Adjust the depth of the router and route the faceplate cutout. After routing the door face, route the top of the door. So this is removed, so you can do the entire faceplate here, and then you're doing the body prep. Well, what would still end up being the faceplate up at the top. Actually, yeah, this makes perfect sense for me. Actually, I would do the body first, and then I would remove it and do. So I would just swap these two steps. Is what I would end up doing. Do the body up top, and then remove that and do the entire faceplate. They're obviously showing doing the body. Don't try to do it in one pass. They say remove no more than 1/4 inch at a time. I find that's a lot of wood to remove with a router. It will take multiple passes to get down to the depth required for an Ives FB41. Let's see if we can come up quickly with a template here. FB41. You betcha. Installation instructions. Let's see. Yeah, let's take a look here. Yeah. Yeah, well, they give us some dimensions. And I would always recommend that you are obviously looking at the template. Before you get started, you're going to need to know how deep you have to go. So they're showing that body there is 2 inch. Obviously 2 1/4, something in that range is what you're going to want to net out at. And this is what it's going to look like when it's done. Yeah, so Major has it right in the sense of when you do the faceplate, you're doing the entire faceplate. All of this. When you're doing the body with the template installed, the top template, that will achieve you just this prep here. And we can verify that because we can see that it's 1/8 of an inch on the bottom or top, and then it's an 1/8 of an inch on the face. So you're going to have a router set to 1/8 of an inch, and you're just going to make that happen. Easy stuff. All right. Back to the installation instructions. Square out the corners. I don't know. I've never seen a corner chisel like this. It looks like he's got 2 of them there in his hand. Actually, I have seen a corner chisel like this. Yeah, it's for doing both ends in one setup. A corner chisel is going to usually have one of these it would be called a chisel, actually. This black part is governed by a spring and is all held captive in the body. And when you give it a little smack, it'll leave a squared out corner. A lot faster than using a chisel to do it, in my opinion. If you're going to do woodworking, get a corner chisel. It's for builders hardware anyway. Obviously, pre-drilling and then attaching the flush bolt. Always pre-drill. You do not want to split the door. That's what it looks like when it's done, obviously. Nice clean installation. Looks a little deep up there. I would sure want to make that fit a little bit tighter. Can't really say whose flush bolt this is. They must have done some Photoshop work on this. Oh no, maybe not. UL, I think it says there. That could be a Glenn Johnson photo. That could be a Glenn Johnson unit. Because I think their image was, their logo on hardware looked like that a little bit. It's been years since I've seen a Glenn Johnson bolt. Okay, now the last thing here, almost the last thing, below this video, here is a link to the manufacturer's page. And from here you can pull up not only all of the major products we sell by means of this horizontal navigation here, you can also pull up a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to their full product catalog. I would absolutely suggest that you take a tour of the full product catalog. It is absolutely a very handy way to be able to understand exactly what it is that you're dealing with in the major line. The first half of the book or so is security hardware, locksmithing tools, things of that nature. If you're a locksmith or you integrate in the field, you will want to absolutely give this catalog a once through. If you're not familiar with Major, you're going to feel like Christmas morning after you discover this catalog. It's fun. It's something to look forward to. The back half of the catalog is full of templates. So if I were to search for the FB 48B, is that what we're doing? Sorry, way off. 42 FB8. We can search the document. The purpose of that is it'll get you down into the area where any sister products will be related to what you're doing here. There's a 42 FB6 that's going to be for your residential flush bolts. Ives 262 and all the people that have copied that flush bolt over the years. There's a router bit here that they recommend. I would strongly consider using the recommended tooling from Major. What's interesting is a template for just a manual extension flush bolt. Bear with me. I want to see what Major. Aha, here we go. Trimco flush bolt. That's an unusual flush bolt because of that opening size. Yeah, here we go. The HIT 33 FB4. You're going to use this with the HIT series, the HIT platform, the HIT platform, the HIT 44, I believe is what it is how you're going to do regular flush bolts. So that faceplate's going to get slapped onto... Oh, I'm sorry, it's the HIT 33, not the HIT 44. That'll require the HIT 33. Here it is. And it's got an adaptable faceplate there for you to use. You might want to investigate how that's attached to the door before you decide to purchase these. You know, the problem with this template is it's still, you know, it's going to give you the faceplate. It's going to give you the ability to do the body. It's not going to give you the hard part, which is this drill extension for flush bolts. Being able to drill that 1/2-inch hole, or 5/8 hole, I forget the diameter, down to the cavity, you know, 10-inch long. That's the trick. That's why you get the big money. What I'm driving at here, bear with me, what I'm driving at here is you've got the edge of your door. You've got to drill that hole. Well, the problem is, you know, you've got a stile here. This is the door veneer here. That stile can be, you know, it could be a single piece of wood. It could actually be two pieces of wood that are laminated together. That's very common. And sometimes you're trying to drill that hole where you've got hardwood here and you've got mill option. You could have oak turned into a stile that's been glued down to poplar, two different densities. So that drill bit, as you've got it laying on its side, and here you are trying to prep that sucker, that bit sometimes wants to go like this. Oh, that bit sometimes wants to go out like that, sometimes it wants to go like that, sometimes it wants to go like that, like that. So it's a trick doing that sort of work, and that's why you should seriously consider avoiding lever extension flush bolts and wood doors. Obviously, it's a fire-rated door. You're not going to do any of this prep in the field. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, you know, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right, so I'm pretty partial when it comes to this series of templates and items from Major. You know, there's generally one person at Major that I speak to. He is, he stands apart from the rest of the industry because there are times that I have to call and say, what do you intend? How am I supposed to attach this to the door? A mounting tab. I need an explanation on it in terms of, I wasn't understanding what was being written in the instructions. And he says, yeah, you know when you do this and you do this? I'm like, ah, thank you. So when you speak to them, you're speaking to people who have been in the field. You call other manufacturers, and they're data entry people sometimes. They don't understand how it works, how it's installed. And Major's not the only company that makes templates that understand the product. But if you're going to be in the locksmithing industry, you better be an expert, because locksmiths, they're out there trying to integrate. They're out there using your tools to make a living. Literally, their ability to make a living is dependent on the using of this, not the reselling. Who cares about reselling? I'm reselling it. So I don't, whether or not you get this to work or not, if it does what it's described to do and you have got a problem getting it to work, well, that's a different problem than you having to get it to work. It's a different problem for me. So I get off easy. But I would like to think we're like major in the sense that I've spent years in a wood shop, years mortising everything under the sun, wood doors, metal doors, frames, every component. So I understand it, and while I have not used this, I would personally go about doing it a different way. The way that I would do it is not the majority opinion in most instances. I end up using stuff that I can end up repurposing for other things, and I'll end up using something that is not the best tool for that application because it can be used for other things. It's like the jack of all trades, master of none sort of phrase. This does one thing, it does it very well. That's all there is to it. The one I would use is going to require a lot more setup because, you know what, I've already got the tool. I can quickly set it up together and make it happen and be done with it. Whereas if you're taking this, and this is why you should consider templates, you are spending the money for this. You are not going to be the person installing the flush bolt or mortising for the flush bolts. You are going to say, here, let me know when you're done. The templates ritualize the process. If you can get this attached to the corner of the door and you can understand, do this prep, remove it, then do this prep, you're good. If you can understand how to set a router to a depth and the tool is set up correctly, you've removed out of the equation all of the potential for error that I leave in the equation because I may elect to do it a different way. So, be mindful of the fact that there's multiple ways to get to the solution. The way I would go about it is not necessarily the way I would recommend you go about it. And generally the people that are buying this material want to buy something, be done with the job, and then move on to something else. And they're not a door shop necessarily. This is actually for stock, so this is not an active order. But someone's going to buy this. Hey, tomorrow is Saturday. It's Friday morning. Tomorrow is Saturday. And I've got to prep 10 doors for flush bolts. Okay. Which flush bolt? FB41's great. Do you have the template guide? Yeah, I've got all of those. I've got every size that you need. Well, make sure you've got a 5/8 because you're going to need that. You got any 1/2-inch 2-flute plunge, long plunge router bits? No, but I can go to the tool shop and get one real quick. Well, if you can, I can ship it to you. I keep it in stock. And then we talk about how to get this done. We talk about how to train the people to do it correctly. You overnight the tool, the job is done. Come Monday morning, when doors have to swing, when doors have to be swinging, they have to be closing and they have to be latching because they are doors that require the exterior of the building to be closed up. This is a bad example being a wood door. But you've got to get doors closed off and hung and done because you're getting kicked off the job, in 3 days because school's reopening. This is where that stuff comes in. I don't mean kicked off the job. I mean the deadline is this date because school's reopen, that kind of stuff. Be mindful, it's not for fire doors. If you're doing this work in the field for fire doors, you proceed knowingly destroying the fire rating of that opening. So be mindful. It's not that it's technically not permitted, it's just not permitted. And you would see that in NFPA 80, the standard NFPA 80s, where you'd find that information. Any questions on the FB48B? 42FB8, or any other major product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you. Thanks to our clients, Architectural Builder Supply is building an additional facility. And what follows is not only a look at the acreage that we're building the facility on, but also first the architectural renderings as they exist, or at least the architectural plans as they exist at this time. Thank you very much. Let's take a look. All right, let's take a look at the architecturals as they exist at this moment, or at least it wouldn't be proper to call these architecturals, but it would be proper to call them renderings in the sense of they're conceptual drawings, they're not renderings. So the entire space is going to look like this in terms of a site rendering. This will be a 22,000 square foot building, of which will have specific purpose areas. There'll be a workshop down here. This is a few thousand square feet that will be likely woodworking, metalworking, CNC, things of that nature. This will be an office area here, a private office area. This will be architectural builders supply expanded storage area where we will be able to do fulfillment. The entire space in the center is going to be all of the volume, as I call it. Large components will be able to be stored and stocked there. Machinery that's too large to fit otherwise may be put out here. Specific facility rooms, and then some recreation over here. Let's take a look at that drone footage, and thank you very much for taking a look.